Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about this story that we've seen kind of multiple different versions of over the past week or so, talking about the potential delay for the 2022 season of the Overwatch League. There's two main articles people are throwing around. One is from GGRecon, but the one I am going to focus on is the one that came from Dot Esports, written by Jacob Wolf and Liz Richardson, doing the best work in the Overwatch community. As always, they rock, they're the best, and you should check them out because they always do good stuff. But I'm going to kind of go through this article a bit and talk about some of the things that are mentioned in here, and I'll kind of give you my thoughts on it. So as they say here, the Overwatch League is assessing its options for 2022, including a potential extended off-season following the 2021 season and interim events that could include non-season based tournaments amid the uncertainty of the release calendar for Overwatch 2. Sources present and familiar with those discussions told Dot Esports. Those discussions come amid internal rumors that Overwatch 2 may be delayed until late 2022 or 2023, as well as concerns among league officials and team owners of waning interest in the existing game and low returns on investment as long as the league continues to compete on the current version of Overwatch, sources said. Earlier this month, a tweet from Overwatch leaker Metro suggested the sequel may be delayed until 2023. So we'll take the first little bit here and kind of talk about this. It is a very interesting to talk about because it is definitely understandable that the game has been having waning interest ever since the delay, basically in Overwatch 2. Right? As soon as they announced Overwatch 2, and it wasn't even really close to being ready, in a sense, it became pretty clear that now at this point in time we're just kind of waiting for Overwatch 2, and the further out we get from the announcement, the more draining it gets, kind of waiting and looking at Overwatch as it is now. There hasn't been a new hero since Echo last year. It's been over a year since a new hero, which I think was a terrible decision. I think that you can't have a game that you build upon having regular content updates and then you just abandon all of the things that made the game more common, and I think that was a mistake. I think that the amount of time that it's taken for them to get to Overwatch 2, if you don't think they could have added one new hero into Overwatch, I think that's a little ridiculous. But you kind of consider the fact that it's taken as long as it has. Yeah, it makes sense that some of the teams and the league itself are looking and saying, we have to figure something else out because this is not working the way that we had hoped it would. And so the delay kind of makes sense. But moving on into the article, we see a delay that could see the 2022 season not start until quarter 3 or quarter 4 of 2022 was first reported by GGRecon. Overwatch League Vice President John Spector rebutted the GGRecon report, writing in a tweet today that the league has not determined its start date or plans for 2022, and it does not plan to take a year-long hiatus. So that's good. In the short term, league and team officials are assessing options that could include a shorter season and a series of tournaments organized either first party by Activision Blizzard Esports or officially licensed by the league, according to sources. If Overwatch 2 moves into beta in 2022, it's also possible that a series of beta events could be played by Overwatch League teams. Specific plans for the Overwatch League next year have not been determined and will likely not be finalized until closer to the conclusion of the current season, which ends on September 25th, sources said. What is clear is that there's a resounding sentiment from some league officials and team ownership to not run another entire season on Overwatch's current iteration. What's unclear is what that means for the league's players as concerns amount around job security if the league's break is longer than anticipated, sources said. For years, the Overwatch League and its sister, the Call of Duty League, have drawn criticism from the esports industry due to their high franchise fees, which in the case of the former, being the Overwatch League, Started at $20 million for its inaugural season and sold for more than $30 million in Season 2, according to reports from ESPN. While those reported prices were not publicly addressed, concerns around profitability and cost have privately arisen among team ownership, who now feel more bearish than bullish on the league and its financial prospects. And then this goes into some bit about how COVID-19 kind of escalated those concerns. Certain revenue streams for teams were severed or delayed, and certain esports teams had to apply for government assistance. And then there's also the news, of course, about the lawsuit against Activision Blizzard. So there's a lot of things in here, but I just kind of wanted to talk. Let's talk about like the bare base like level of it, right? What is the move forward going into 2021 for the Overwatch League? And I think that these discussions probably have changed over the past month or so. Losing sponsors certainly causes issues, and the kind of uncertainty about the release of Overwatch 2 causes more issues. And so the league is really in this kind of bad position. Like, to me, the Call of Duty League will be able to rebound much easier than the Overwatch League, because Call of Duty is, still getting regular releases and updates. I mean, that's just the way Call of Duty works. I don't know when the next Call of Duty game comes out. I really have no idea. So, is it Call of Duty Vanguard? Is that the new game? I didn't actually know that was a new game. I thought it was like a good thing. Okay. Yeah, looks like it is. So, we know that there's going to be a new Call of Duty game this year, with Call of Duty Vanguard, but we don't know when the next Overwatch game is coming out. And so for Call of Duty, when you have this kind of consistent release schedule and you have consistent games every year, you know what you're going to get. And so it makes it a lot easier to continue the hype and the stuff surrounding the league. But Overwatch hasn't had anything consistent in terms of releases in over a year. We haven't gotten any new content in over a year, really. I mean, we've gotten occasional deathmatch maps and occasional, quality of life changes and stuff like crossplay. But that's not really content. That's more, like I said, quality of life. That's more just game stuff that isn't content, right? So that is the main concern, I would say, for Overwatch right now, is that there hasn't been content in a while. When there's no new content, how do you go about, keeping the league afloat and keeping the league successful if you don't even know if you're going to get anything good out of it? And so for me, I think that it is interesting to hear these kind of rumors and see I guess not like rumors, these discussions, because I think that they do need to make some changes. And they do need to have a plan going into next season, because if they don't, I think things are going to be way, 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 way worse than what they are currently. I like the idea of beta tournaments if Overwatch 2 goes into beta in the coming year. I think if you are the Overwatch dev team, you have to be having regular contact with the Overwatch League, and you have to be giving them updates about where this game is at. Right? Like, I'm sure the league knows more than we do, but if the league doesn't know anything about when this game is supposed to be coming out, that is the biggest failing of the Overwatch League and Activision Blizzard Esports. Like, the league needs to know what is happening so they can figure out how to develop the league going forward, and they can figure out how to work it and make it make more sense. I love the idea of saying, like, either a shortened season with a bunch of tournaments. Like, I really like the idea of open tournaments where you have Overwatch League teams competing with contenders teams, like the idea of, like, a huge invitational tournament with Overwatch League teams, with contenders teams, with just prize money at stake. And the idea, that there's going to be a lot of people who look at this and say, well, some Overwatch League teams who are not maybe as good wouldn't want to compete in a tournament like this because, they don't want to go up against a really good Korean contenders team, or, American Tornado doesn't exist anymore, but, a team like that have just been super talented and have just been dominating for so long. Like, they don't want to go in and lose to a contenders team and then, have to deal with kind of the questions and the backlash and stuff like that. But I'm still of the mindset, like, that to me is what I want to see, because it's one of the ways that esports is so different from, traditional sports, is that the you can do stuff like that, and it's fair, and it works in a way that I think is good. And I think that we in general need to see the Overwatch League promote tier 2 and tier 3 a little bit more. Obviously, the system itself is really, really bad. But if you give the players the opportunity, if they're not in the Overwatch League, to do this, right? And the other thing is, the reason why it's a good idea, I'm kind of getting a little off topic, is if you have a longer off season like you had last season, it seems like they might do another longer off season this season. If that's something that you do and that's the approach that you take going forward, the good thing about that is that you give teams the ability to, scout these players if they're playing against Overwatch League caliber talent, right? Like, you may have contenders players, right, who you get to put them up in matches against Overwatch League teams. And maybe you have a team that's like, yeah, we're still deciding on, we want another DPS player, we want another support player, we want another tank player. And they're like, we don't really know who looks very good. Maybe someone kind of slips under the radar. It's, it would essentially fulfill the same purpose that the World Cup has fulfilled for the past several years, with the exception of 2020, because there was no World Cup in 2020 because of COVID. But World Cup was really good because a lot of players like Fusions, Bruceson, these are players who kind of made a mark in the World Cup that got them recognized, that got them trialed, that made it so that teams would look at them and bring them in, because they were like, well, these are actually really good players that we haven't actually gotten the ability to see before now, in really good ways, or they slipped under our radar. And that's what this allows you to do. And that's why the World Cup was always such a big deal, because it allowed some of those smaller, lesser known players to shine and get that recognition. Now you can do that again, potentially, with these tournaments if they run them. So I think it's interesting, and I think that is what they should do. What I'm most intrigued by is whether or not we see an announcement around the grand finals or near the grand finals. I think it would probably be about a month or so after the grand finals before we hear anything official, or anything concrete, because it just doesn't make sense for them to announce anything too soon. They have time to think. They don't know yet what the status of Overwatch 2 is, so they probably want a few more updates on that before they make any real decision. But I guess we'll see what happens. But I think it's an interesting article. I think it's an interesting thing to look into, and see what happens. I am of the mindset that we probably will have a decently long off season, which I don't think is that weird, considering last season there was also a decently long off season. It was a season that ended back in September of last year, or October of last year, and began in April of this year. So that was a long off season. I don't know if they'll do a similar length off season. I always like to kind of see where things are, but it seems like the season's ending earlier this season than it has in a while. And so then when they start next season, who knows? But I hope we get to see tons of off-season stuff. I want to do off-season content, obviously, so I'm curious to see what we get and hear what there is. But at this point in time, there's really only so much we can kind of do. It's really just a waiting game. The league is in a really just rough position. They've lost sponsors because of the Activision Blizzard lawsuit. They have dealt now with a game that is basically out of the league's control, that has not been updated in a while. They're dealing with the uncertainty of the future for the sequel. It's just like they have so many things that they have to deal with now, that are just out of their control. And the fact that if the league is able to keep itself alive and succeed and do well going forward, that's mad respect at this point in time, because the state of things now, everything seems odd and just seems so unfortunate for the league. But those are my thoughts on it. I'm curious to hear from you. what your thoughts are on it. If you have any, let me know in the comments down below. But that is all for me for today. If you like this video, want more like it in the future, consider liking and subscribing. But that's all for now. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye bye.